Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, this is another session recap. This is Season 1, Session 9 of my AD&D First Edition Greyhawk campaign. So we are now 9 weeks into uh, running through B1 in Search of the Unknown with just one or two interludes in between as the players made their return to various locations in order to heal up, on one occasion level up, restock some supplies, and then made their return, which is what the last session was, where they had made their preparations and returned to Quescaton, and they got involved in a fairly challenging combat, and the paladin ended up becoming incapacitated and from friendly fire. I liked one of the comments where they says, there's nothing friendly about friendly fire, and it was certainly what was the case, but it was taken with in good in good taste and good fun. We had a great laugh with it, and then three of the other player characters actually succumbed to the stench of the troglodytes that they were fighting, and so they had all lost. They had all lost 3 strength points. So in some cases, that became pretty challenging for them as well, and that is basically where we picked up with the next session, so session number 9. And I'm going to start going through an overview of how this session 9 ran. So roughly we've been averaging around 3 to 3.5, probably closer to 3.5 hours per session. So we're a little over 30 hours in gameplay, and just really loving it, loving the group dynamic and loving the game system, and how for some of these players, this is the first time they're playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and so they're really enjoying it, and it's really started to come together. So without further ado, let's move over to who we had here. So we had our 9 players return, so they're all back, second session in a row, possibly even third in a row that everyone was able to make it, and like I said, the group is really starting to mesh and starting to work out, well together as far as organization and such. However, I will say that, and this is based on player comments, that this particular session got a little bit out of hand, and I bear the responsibility for that, because with 9 players, each one trying to assert what they wanted to do, and I broke away from what I was using, the tool I was using in them making a declaration phase of, what are you going to do, and then have them go in that particular order. And I had broken away a little bit from that, and it certainly led to a disjointed feeling for what was going on. There was a little bit too much going on at one time, and so again, that has to do with the size of the party, 9 players, and and then my responsibility of trying to maintain that control, and that's why I came up with that tool. And for whatever reason, I just, it just lapsed. So that's a bit of an apology to my players that, you absolutely did not do anything wrong there. What happened was that I just didn't use that tool, and we will, for session 10, go right back to using that tool again. So sometimes you have to rein them in as a dungeon master. You gotta keep it fairly tight, as far as the randomness and the chaos. I mean, there's chaos, so it kind of emulates a little bit the chaos of combat, but it shouldn't get in the way of of the gameplay and of the enjoyment of the experience. And so I'm sure it was kind of tense, for a few moments when people were trying to communicate what they wanted to do, and it was just more difficult to pick it up. And so that's a change that we will certainly make. So let me begin with the recap. So after the battle, the party, and this is the battle in which the paladin was injured, brought down to -3 hit points, then healed up. And so after the battle, the party dragged off its wounded paladin to the near the entrance where they had entered, suspecting or perhaps realizing that they could not exit from there again. They holed up there for a few minutes to plan and then construct a litter for the paladin. Candrius is the paladin. And so, yeah, the players started to discuss, well, how are we going to drag him along? And the players started talking about, and they kind of remembered, or maybe I dropped a slight reminder, that two of the lieutenant troglodytes that they had defeated were carrying pretty darn heavy spears. And so they would make a perfect framework for for a litter if they were going to produce a litter. Then the next player came in and said, you know what, there's a shield here as well. And it was very common amongst the Greeks, the Spartans, and even the Romans to construct litters out of shields across whatever they were going to carry them on. And so they had some of the ideas and materials that they were going to use. Then Mirador, the cleric, actually has a background trait. His family were tailors. And so he says, well, I have a tailor's toolkit, and I can actually bring together, I have some material and some leather scraps and other things that we can gather up and create this litter, which I allowed them to do. They spent some time doing it. I think it took them roughly about 12 minutes in total to work it through. Now, I'm making random encounter rolls as we're going along, and I have a slightly modified random encounter for them, and I'm going to kind of clue them into this as well. Because the party is so large, there's more frequency of random encounters because they don't move so quietly. There's 9 of them. Some of them are wearing heavy armor. And so with 9 people moving around through the place, it's not exactly the quietest of conditions. It's kind of hard to sneak around. And so they have a slightly higher chance of having random encounters. So while they were constructing this and making their plans and all, I'm making those random checks. They're not coming through, so they're pretty much going unmolested while they're putting together this litter and making some of their additional plans. In the meantime, the 3 characters, Crandon the thief, Breeze the cleric, and Cedric the magic user, they had all lost those 3 strength points, and it was going to take them up to 10 minutes to recover from that. And so this had eaten up all of that 10 minutes time. So they started to recover, and they were able to then move out. So now, fortunately, Breeze was still able to function in his tailoring skill, even though his strength came down to, I believe, roughly like a 6 or something like that. So he wasn't going to be carrying, at least not yet, the litter, so that wasn't a problem. Just a few minutes later, the 3 began to feel better, and the party was able to put Candrius on the litter, and they began making their way towards the door that they had seen in the previous session, the door that the troglodytes seemed to be guarding. Um, so the later they began to make their way towards the door that they had seen that was being guarded by the Trogs, they were both lucky and relieved that the fact that they had no additional encounters during their recovery. The two clerics, Breeze and Mirador, carried the litter. They wanted to remain close to the paladin should he receive any additional injuries. The whole party knew that the paladin should, if the paladin received any significant injuries again, he would likely die or suffer potentially career-ending injuries. So basically, what I did was I warned them. I said, listen, if this, if you in the game, and this is obviously very meta, if in this campaign your character goes to negatives, then is recovered, and while still in that 7-day healing up period, gets reduced back down into negative hit points, there's some potential for, first of all, it's harder to make your system shock rolls. And secondly, they might actually lose some physical attributes permanently from going back down to that, even if they do survive their system shock rolls. So, and I'm still working on how many points it's actually going to be, but there's a potential of losing points of strength, constitution, and dexterity, all physical attributes from going back down into another critical. I could make the argument for mental as well, in case kind of basically the body is in such shock that significant damage is done even to mental acuity as well. So, but right now I'm just going around thinking about the physical. Back at the heavy oaken door, the party performed their protocol. So they had already established over these 9 sessions a system of checking for traps and so on, and then attempting to pick locks if necessary. So the thief Crandon checked for traps and was certain there were none. He made an excellent roll. All right. He attempted to disengage the locking mechanism, but on an outward swinging door that proved to be more of a challenge. So he unsuccessfully did that. Basically, it was a bar across the interior of the door, so it's not exactly like he's picking a lock. He's actually trying to get in between the jamb of the door and still lift the bar up and over to open it up. It's a little bit harder on an outward swinging door. From that angle. At least that's how I perceived it to be. The Ranger Angus, being one of the strongest members of the party, made short work of the old bar that must have been the lock, and the door was thrown open. Angus quickly stepped aside and let the main frontline combatants charge in. Angus is the primary archer, and so he likes to stay at the rear. That way, once everybody rushes in, then he could start picking off his shots. Now, sometimes that means that the archers are shooting into melee combat, and we've seen some instances where that wasn't necessarily the greatest thing to happen. But he's double specialized in his bow, and so he's or at least specialized in his bow. So he's going to be pretty precise with what he's doing usually. So they all charge in. Cedric, the magic user, sent in his familiar, the crow that he calls Corvo, to fly ahead and see what was in store for the party. Through the crow's eyes, he could see a large statue of a human warrior, surrounded by 6 troglodyte warriors, a trog leader of massive size. But more concerning was the human man in dark robes who quickly started shouting out orders in the troglodyte language. The party perceived that the order was for the trog warriors with their javelins to kill the crow, as one of the trogs prepared to launch a javelin at it. Fortunately, the adventure party had advantage, and they were quickly moving in to prevent that. and take out the enemy as quickly as possible. Understandably panicked at the idea that his familiar would be harmed. So he's kind of gotten addicted to the extra hit points that he's carrying. Um, so he frantically told all that he would be recalling his crow rather than cast a spell in that moment. So yeah, he was basically on the chat and saying, "Hey, hey, hey, hey! You know what? I'm not casting a spell this round. I'm getting the crow out of danger." So that became his priority, to get the crow out of danger, and then he would engage in the next round. So that became his declared action. It was, however, the archers that would go first, and somehow Angus the ranger missed with his first two arrows. So once again, we started to, relive the problems that happen when the ranger misses his first targets. It's never gone well, and we even mentioned at the time, hey, it wasn't a bless spell cast first, because that is exactly what happened the two previous times that the archer had missed. He had missed right after the clerics cast their bless spell. So that didn't happen here, but it still was not boding well for the party. Breeze, however, hit the Trog leader with an arrow that went feathers deep into its guts, yet only seemed to enrage it. Yeah, he hit it with a critical strike, did 16 points of damage, and it just lodged right into the troglodyte leader, but it didn't go down. He had quite a significant number of hit points. He had 27 hit points. A 6-hit die chieftain. I can tell the players now what he was. So very, very tough. Crandon had skirted up along the flank and threw one of his daggers at the Trog leader, giving it another minor cut. He did like 3 points of damage. Sparrow's sling bullet. She is the only female player in the group of 9. So I don't know what that says. Basically about about the populations. I played in games with a lot more females. I've played some with none. So we're really glad to have her, because she, brings a lot of character development. I mean, I'm really starting to like the way her character is developing. And when I first came up with these scenarios, particularly this one that they're about to go in, I was expecting her character to really shine in this moment, and make her somewhat of a focus. And you'll see where I go with that in a few minutes. So it worked out fairly well. But not as well as I was hoping for, and I probably could have done a slightly better job to make that more of a focus. So that's something I'll, certainly. She will have other moments where her being a druid is actually going to play a more significant role in this particular part of the adventure. So Sparrow's sling bullet missed. Amalric then steps forward, preparing his spell, and he opened it up, casting his spell. And moments later, 6 of the Trog warriors, so he caught all 6 of them, including 2 lieutenants. So they all just went out asleep. Likely stunned by this unexpected turn of events, the human shouted one final order to the large Trog leader, and then he ran behind this massive statue. All right. So there was a huge statue of Rogan, who was the fighter lord that helped construct this stronghold. And so there was that huge statue, and the escaping druid. They learned later that it was a druid. He escapes around behind the statue, and he cast a spell at that time, And again, they don't know exactly what he had done. They didn't discover it until later, and mostly from the knowledge of Sparrow. So, I gave Sparrow some hints that, she would be aware of certain spells. Um, she knew, and you'll see in the moment, she knew some aspects of what was going on. So the party moved forward, uh, and Cedric, having secured his crow the minute before, was now moved up and he got the fleeing human into his view. The magic user cast a charm spell, which immediately took hold of the fleeing human, who stopped running and turned to greet his friend Cedric. So this was the real game changer. Um, I anticipated, because I knew the spells that they had memorized, and so when I was planning this out, I had to say, well, what would happen, and how would the rest of this turn out if he charmed the druid, and so that's kind of where I was going with one scenario, and then what if he charmed the troglodyte leader? How would that play out? Fortunately, Cedric was like, I'm not going to try to charm someone who we can't even talk to, because nobody in the group had, the troglodyte language. So his intent was always to cast it on the human in order to gain control over him, which he did. Druid failed the saving throw, miserably failed the saving throw, and so that's where they gain control of the situation. So they have the six sleeping troglodytes. That's when Crandon comes in, and he basically does the coup de grace on all of them. I'm going to reveal it now. They didn't bother searching the bodies at all, and they kind of just left everything where it lay. And I was kind of surprised at that. But they were looking to just move forward more quickly than they usually do. So it was kind of interesting. And I think that a lot of that had to do with the fact of the conversation and the convincing that Cedric, the magic user, was having with this druid. And while he was talking with this druid, and the druid immediately welcomed him as, oh, good friend and everything. He was completely under his charms. And then the druid spotted a sparrow, a half elf, and his demeanor changed. He had a sneer on his face, and he referred to her as being an abomination and filth. And he had the same reaction to Breeze when he first saw Breeze as an elf, and so he was certainly showing like signs of great hatred and loathing of demi-humans, but particularly of a half elf. All right, and they, it took them a bit, took the players a bit by surprise, because they were like, well, wait a second, aren't druids supposed to be neutral? And you could be neutral and still have evil tendencies or good tendencies or whatever. It all falls within that neutral spectrum. And once the players learn the real motivations behind behind this druid, and then they will I hope kind of understand how his logic is twisted, but still kind of makes sense. It still would fall within that kind of a neutral concept, but it's still very dark and very twisted. Like, so there's no doubt that just his perception of things is dramatically altered. And so if he were either sane or healthy or whatever, he might not think this way. But they haven't they haven't fully explored all of that yet. So now they have him captured, or at least under their control with the friendship that he has built with the magic user. And so the magic user says, "Hey, you know what? Bring us to the wizard's private chambers because that's where we really want to go. That's the whole purpose for them being here is to get the wizard's journal." And so they ask, "Hey, bring us that way." And so he agrees, "Yes, I will guide you there." They then remembered, "Hey, what about the magic stone?" All right. And so they says, "Hey, do you know where the magic stone is? Because we're really interested in that as well." And so he once again says, "Yes, I will guide you there." Now, they were worried a little bit about making other encounters, but the druid tells them that, "Oh, I can, I have sway in this place. I can tell any of the guards or whatever that you are with me, and you will all be safe." Now, Cedric had to convince the druid that the elves in the group and the half elf were all his servants, all right, under his control, and so that is why he is with them now. Breeze in particular was seething. He wanted to kill this guy right away, but Cedric managed to calm him down and say, "No, no, we need him. Where he's going to get us through this place and bring us to places that otherwise we're trying to just search for it, and they're still carrying around the paladin on a litter as well." So he brings them to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch scenes here and bring you to this here. So this is on Roll20. I actually figured out how to put this on Roll20, and then just use the hide and hide everything with the fog of war, and then just highlight and open things up. So this is the area where they were helping their paladin get onto the litter. This is the door. This is the statue room. And so they started following the druid. He tripped a trigger over here to seal up this pit trap, and he warned them about the pit trap. They were still a little bit leery about it, like, are we going to really trust this guy? But Cedric convinced them that, hey, my charm spell is going to help them, is going to keep him kind of loyal to me while we're going through here. So you could see like the more white area is where they actually walk through. And then they said, around this point, they had asked about the magic stone. And so that's why they didn't go up through this gray area. They came back and around, and here is the magic stone. Now, there are a couple of troglodytes over here, and the cleric dismissed them. The druid dismissed them, and they scurried past and went in some other direction. The party starts testing out the theory of placing the stones in their mouths and seeing what magical effect happens. All right, and so the first one to take the stone and place it in his mouth was I wrote it wrong. Let's see. I wrote it wrong. So Amalric took it, and Amalric gained an intelligence point. Mirador was silenced for a number of hours. He still doesn't know how many hours yet that he is going to be silent for. So he's a cleric, and he is silent. I'll save Candrius the paladin for last. Breeze would have been able to heal up any wounds that he had, but he was unwounded at the time. Ennis refused to take it. Cedric took the stone, and nothing happened. Leah or Sparrow, when she took the stone into her mouth, it dissolved away, and in her palm appeared a fairly large pearl. And then someone, for some reason, I can't figure out what I wrote there. Someone gained a wisdom. Must be Mirador. No, not Mirador. Someone gained a wisdom. I can't even read my own writing. And then finally, Candrius said, yes, I will take it, even though he couldn't put it into his mouth on his own. Remember, he's in a litter, and he's fairly immobile. And so when he takes the stone into his mouth, he suddenly teleports. So he's going to end up teleporting away. So they were in this room, and he ended up down over here in the bottom area of 42. Now I'm going to switch scenes here so you can kind of see. When he rolled that 1 on a d20, and he was teleported there, I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, like, oh my gosh, and I went silent. And he even said, Alan, who plays the paladin, he was like, something's bad when the DM just goes silent like that. And I'm sitting there trying to figure out, all right, how am I going to work this situation? Like, how am I going to describe it? Now I have one player who's conscious, but in a different place, but he's also immobilized. And so that actually played to his advantage in that, when he appeared in there, he appeared in a room where there are 4 large spiders, and I rolled a surprise roll. The paladin surprised the spiders did not surprise the paladin, so they were completely unaware of him. And the fact that he was immobile when he appeared on the floor in that little niche area actually played to his benefit. If he were, fully mobile, they might have detected him on the second check, because I made another roll afterwards just to see if they detected him, and they didn't. All right, again, because he's not moving around, and he realized he was in a different spot. He didn't mention, I'm going to call out, I'm going to do anything. He just laid there quietly and waited. Now the rest of the party is starting to think, hey, you know what? We got to find out. I mean, they're sitting there with, like, of all the people to disappear. And they suspected, like, first they checked the litter to make sure that he didn't just turn invisible, but they knew about teleportation being a thing in this, in Quescatan, because they encountered it before. So they started assuming, hey, we have to go look to see where he's at. And that is when Mirador, I believe, cast the. He says, "I'm going to cast a detect good, and we're going to see if I can pick up the trail of this lawful good character. He should be the only good thing, or the main good thing in this place, and so I should be able to pick him up." And we started debating as to whether or not. It has a 12-inch range, but would it work through solid rock and everything? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Just start heading that way. So they tell the druid to just start bringing us towards the stairwell to the top floor. Bring us to the wizard's place, and hopefully they'll detect him, because they knew they had a 12-inch square, circle around them that they can hopefully pick up on it. And as soon as they all go back to the map, as soon as they turned, this corner down here, because he was bringing them on down. As soon as they turned this corner down here, that's when they started picking him up. He's down over in here, so they kind of had this leeway. And as they got here, this was a web wall, and so they charge in, through. This is where Sparrow casts a create fire spell, and she gets through into that point. So they move on through, and they move on through the webs. They engage the spiders, and they kill off. Let me see, where is it? They kill off. Angus kills off 2 of the spiders, and the other 2 spiders, the druid, that's their captive, sort of, he dismisses them. All right, so he cast he had a summon insect, and so he basically just reversed it and dispatched them away. So I just have to finish the text here. And so they get rid of the spiders. They discover Candrius, really happy that he's that he's safe. Put him back on the litter and start making their way back up through to this stairwell up here, and then they go up to the next level. Now let me see if I can actually do this without disrupting very much. What do I do with that map? And so now they come back up here. And let me just make sure that you are looking at the map. Yes. So now they're back here. And this, I was able now to highlight everything that they had seen previously in the previous sessions. So they arrive up over here in room 30. And they start making their way, following the druid, all the way through this area here, up to, and they get to about here. So this is the next location that they're going to go into. They haven't entered it yet, but they know that this is the room to the wizard's corridor. Now they're anticipating, because they've heard rumors, and the druid here has told them that death lays behind these doors, and that he was summoned to this place from the caves of chaos. So I dropped that little seed for them as well. He was summoned to this place by the hobgoblins and the troglodytes that were basically occupying Quescaton, and that the former wizard, Zelagar, has arisen and is, he's very powerful, and was once dead and now has arisen. And they had actually sealed him up inside this place. So when the players first see, or player characters, I should say, first see this this door, it's a double door entrance. It was all spiked closed, all right, because outswinging doors. It was all spiked closed. There was a very crude red skull done in blood on the door, and then various writing in different humanoid languages, goblin and and troglodyte and orcish. Beware, don't go in here, don't stay away from this area. And so now the players are kind of anticipating. They're like, what are we actually going to face in here? Probably thinking, is this DM going to throw that at us? So it's going to remain to be seen, how they handle this. And I'm not going to give any hints or tips or anything like that in this video. this recap, they'll wait until Monday to see how this actually plays out and what they actually encounter, and maybe they are encountering this, or most likely they're going to encounter something that is going to be a challenge. It is going to be a something that they're going to have to be on their A game and really deal with it. So that's all I'm going to say. No other spoilers, but it should be a really interesting session coming on Monday. So that's pretty much it. I still have to tell them their experience points. I anticipate that when we finally wrap up session 10, and hopefully they survive, and back to Westburn and recover if they still need recovery, and they should all be either very close to, in the Paladin's case, to third level, but I think most of the party is going to be third level, and the Paladin might be just slightly lagging behind. But if he does manage to get to third level, then that will be ideal. I've finally decided what I'm going to make a season. All right, seasons will be level banded. So levels 1 through 3 is season 1. Then 4 through 7, and so on and so on. Although when I get to the upper levels, there'll be 2 level bands for those seasons. I'm predicting, and we were having this conversation on Discord. I'm predicting that this season 1 is taking about 10 sessions. I would assume that season 2 would take possibly twice as long, since the experience scale, the experience points requirements basically double when you're going through each of those bands. And when I plotted it all out, I was like, wow, if we plot this all out as far as I'm really projecting, we're talking about like 2 years and 11 months of gameplay, which I will be elated if this campaign actually lasts that long. And I'm hoping that all of the players are still there, and we have our group of 9, and we play this for weekly game for up to 2 years. It would be phenomenal if we can pull that off. So that's pretty much a wrap on session 9. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you hadn't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, this will get posted up on Thursday. Let me switch. So this will come up tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Unfortunately, I can't do those live viewings anymore. I can't do those premieres because I don't get home from work until about 7:30ish or even quarter to 8. And so I want to just stay true to always putting up these session recaps on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. That way you know when to look for it. On rare occasion, I might have to put it off until Saturday like I did a couple sessions ago because I just work related could not get to making the video on a Wednesday and then uploading it for Thursday. So once again, thanks for joining. Have a great time the rest of the week. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. A shout out. Live streams, a group of old school GMs coming together and just running that show on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I will have a session coming up by, I believe, October 20th. I'll be appearing on it and talking about the differences between house rules, home brews, and some of the things that fall in between those two, as well as rules as written. So I'm going to kind of cross the whole span of different ways of looking at those. So look forward to doing that show in a live show. I usually don't do live streams, so that'll be a first for me in doing an extensive live stream. So again, have a great time. Have a good rest of your week. Stay safe out there and keep on gaming. Keep it old school. All right. Thanks. Take care.